The truth hit me like a wrecking ball that day. My life was a carefully constructed lie, and I'd been played for a fool. My name is Max Miller, and I'm 35 years old. Each morning now starts with coffee, paperwork, and maple curled at my feet. A quiet routine built from the ashes of betrayal. Haley, my wife of 7 years, chose our neighbor Aiden Clark over the vows we made. I watched her drive away with him her wedding ring abandoned on our dresser like some worthless trinket. My mother always warned me about fair-weather friends, but she never mentioned fair-weather wives. My hands, calloused from building our home board by board, trembled as I gathered the first receipt. "You'll regret this," she hissed. "I won't be destroyed by their selfishness. I'll ensure justice speaks louder than their excuses." Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. But let me start from the beginning. I remember how the wheels of her suitcase sounded against the kitchen tile. That hollow, plastic rattle, like something breaking inside a machine. It was Tuesday night, and the clock above our stove read 7:43 p.m. I'd just finished washing the dinner dishes when Haley appeared with her bag packed. The tile beneath her feet was blue Majorca. We'd picked it together at the home improvement store 3 years ago. I'd spent a full weekend on my knees installing it, meticulously spacing each piece while she handed me spacers and brought me cold beers. Now she stood on that same tile, looking everywhere but at my face. "You're really doing this?" Not a question. Haley adjusted the handle of her rolling suitcase. "I need some space, Max, to think." Through the kitchen window, I could see headlights idling in our driveway. Aiden's BMW, engine running, waiting. Like this was some kind of airport pickup instead of my wife walking out on our marriage. I steadied my hands against the counter's edge, pressing until my fingertips went white. "Are you planning to come back?" She fiddled with her phone, already halfway gone. "I don't know. I just need time to figure things out. It's not what you think." But it was exactly what I thought. I'd seen the texts pop up on her phone. I'd noticed the perfume she'd started wearing again. I'd watched her smile at her screen when she thought I wasn't looking. "How much time?" My voice sounded flat, even to me. "I don't know, Max." Irritation flashed across her face, like I was the unreasonable one for asking. "A few weeks, maybe." The air conditioner kicked on, humming through the sudden silence between us. I could have shouted, could have begged, could have thrown the plate I was drying against the wall, but something cold and clear settled over me instead. "Take what you need," I said. She hesitated, maybe waiting for the scene I refused to give her. Then she nodded once, grabbed her bag, and walked out our front door without looking back. I listened to the sound of car doors opening and closing, the engine revving slightly as they backed out of the driveway. Then nothing. I sat down heavily at our kitchen table, the dish towel still clutched in my hand. A warm weight pressed against my feet, and I looked down to find Maple settled firmly against my legs, her brown eyes watching me intently. She hadn't moved to follow Haley to the door, something she always did when either of us left the house. Even our dog knew something fundamental had changed. "Just you and me now, girl," reaching down to scratch behind her ears. 2 days passed with complete silence from Haley. No calls, no texts, nothing but an Instagram story showing sunset cocktails at some beachfront bar. I didn't recognize the location, but I recognized her laugh as she clinked glasses with someone off camera. On the morning of the third day, I called Leah John's office and scheduled an appointment. By afternoon, I was sitting across from her desk with divorce paperwork spread between us. "The most important thing right now is documentation," Leah said, her voice steady and practical. "You need to track every withdrawal, every charge, every financial move she makes while she's gone." I nodded, grateful for her matter-of-fact approach. No pity in her eyes, just strategy. "Start a ledger," she continued, sliding a legal pad toward me. "Note dates, amounts, what was spent. Get printouts of credit card statements, bank withdrawals, everything. We need to establish a pattern." That night, I sat at our dining room table with my laptop open, scrolling through our joint accounts. The first significant withdrawal had happened the day before she left, $2,000 in cash. There were restaurant charges in places we'd never been together. A hotel room in Oceanside, gas station purchases tracking a route down the coast. I printed everything, organized by date, and started a notebook labeled simply Haley. Each night, I'd add to it, watching our accounts like some sort of financial detective, documenting the evidence of her new life without me. A week into Haley's absence, my phone rang with Rita's name on the screen. My mother-in-law's voice sounded worried. "Max, have you heard from Haley?" She hasn't been answering my texts, and I'm getting concerned. I stared at the ceiling, considering what to say. She's taking some time away, Rita. Said she needed space. Away? Where? This isn't like her to just disappear. I could have told Rita everything. About Aiden, about the money disappearing from our accounts, about the divorce papers sitting in a folder on my desk. But some instinct told me to wait. Evidence speaks louder than accusations. I think she just needs to sort some things out, I said instead. I'm sure she'll call you soon. After hanging up, I walked to our bedroom window. From there, I could see down the street to Aiden's driveway, where Haley's white Mazda sat parked overnight for the third time that week. No more pretense of needing space or figuring things out. This was an affair, plain and simple. I stood there in the darkness, watching that car gleaming under the streetlight, and wondered what she would say when she finally came back through our door. 29 days after Haley walked out, I heard the front door click open. I was at the kitchen island, reviewing bank statements, when the familiar rattle of a suitcase wheel caught my attention. The same suitcase she'd packed that night, now rolling across the tile I'd laid with my own hands years ago. I looked up just as Haley stepped inside. Her tan was deeper, hair lighter from the sun. She wore sunglasses pushed up on her head and moved with practiced casualness, like she was returning from a weekend trip to her mother's, not a month-long disappearance. She dropped her keys on the counter with a metallic clink. The sound felt deliberate, territorial, a claim being staked. Her eyes darted around the kitchen, looking at everything except me. "You're home," I said, my voice flat and even. No question mark, just an observation. She exhaled, setting her purse down. "Yeah, I just needed to clear my head." I folded the bank statement I'd been reviewing, tucking it into a folder. "A month with Aiden clears your head?" Her back stiffened, shoulders tightening under her blouse. "Don't start with accusations, Matt. He's just a friend. You're blowing this out of proportion." A laugh escaped me, bitter, sharp, like broken glass. "Friends don't rent beach houses together. Friends don't leave their wedding rings on the dresser before vanishing." She spun to face me, eyes flashing. "You're paranoid. I wasn't running off with him. I was figuring out what I wanted." "While draining our joint account?" I shot back, remembering the ledger I'd been keeping. "While your mother called here asking why you disappeared?" "That's not fair," she snapped, voice rising. "I needed space. I wasn't sneaking around the way you're making it sound." I slid off the bar stool, standing at my full height. "Then explain the hotel receipts. The Venmo transfers with hearts? The gas charges down by his zip code." Her mouth opened, then closed. She shook her head like she was swatting away an annoying fly. "You're twisting things. It wasn't serious. I was confused." "Confused is forgetting what to order for dinner," I said coldly. "You made choices. Every single night you weren't here." Maple padded into the kitchen then, stopping halfway between us. She looked at Haley, then came to sit by my feet instead. Even the dog had made her choice. Haley crossed her arms tight against her chest. "You've already decided, haven't you? You want to paint me as the villain." "No," I said, standing taller. "You did that yourself." I remembered summers at my dad's cabin, the smell of pine and the feel of rough wood under my palms as we built the dock together. He'd taught me that real men face problems head-on, with dignity. I wished he could see me now, standing my ground without losing control. Haley's chin lifted, false bravado covering the cracks in her composure. "If you won't forgive me, then I'll take what I'm owed. The house, the savings. I won't walk away empty-handed." And there it was, the pivot, the mask fully off. She hadn't come back to fix anything. She'd come back to claim spoils. All this time I'd been wondering what her story would be, what excuse she'd offer. But there was no excuse, just entitlement. This wasn't about confusion or therapy or finding herself. This was about wanting everything, Aiden's excitement and my stability, my house and her freedom. She thought she could disappear for a month, then waltz back in and take half my life as her consolation prize. I looked at her standing there, chin raised, eyes cold, and realized with perfect clarity, this wasn't about heartbreak, it was about survival. Protecting what was mine from someone who thought she could burn our marriage to the ground and still cash in the insurance policy. Ever so slightly, I nodded to myself. I wouldn't fight with shouting or threats. I'd fight with facts, receipts, timestamps, bank statements. All the evidence I'd been quietly gathering while she was making memories with Aiden. Haley would not walk away with anything she hadn't earned. And from the look of my ledger, she'd earned precisely nothing. That evening, after Haley retreated to the guest room, I started my checklist. Funny how pain becomes a project when you have no other choice. I grabbed a legal pad, methodically transforming each raw feeling into an actionable item. I unlocked my office, the small room off the kitchen where I kept our financial records, and closed the door behind me. The soft click of the lock felt like the first real boundary I'd set since Haley walked back in. Maple curled up outside the door, her heavy sigh audible through the wood. I pulled out bank statements, credit card bills, and laid them across my desk in chronological order. Starting from the day she left, I highlighted each withdrawal, each charge. The Venmo payments to Aiden jumped out immediately, 3 separate transfers with heart emojis in the description line. The hotel charges were clustered around weekends, always at places an hour or more away. Gas station receipts from near his zip code peppered the statements. My hands were steady as I worked, almost mechanical. This wasn't about hurt anymore. This was about evidence. I remembered my dad once telling me, "Max, when someone shows you who they are, pay attention." Haley had shown me exactly who she was, not just with Aiden, but with how she'd come back expecting rewards for her betrayal. The next morning, I called Leah while driving to work. "She's back," I said when she picked up, "and she's threatening to take the house." "What else?" Leah asked, her voice calm and focused. I detailed the conversation, the Venmo charges, the gas receipts, the hotel bills. I could hear Leah typing as I spoke. "This is perfect," she said. "What you're describing is called dissipation. The court doesn't look kindly on spouses who spend marital assets on affairs, so it matters? The money she spent on him? It's theft from the marriage, Mac, and judges understand that. Keep collecting evidence, every receipt, every charge. If she spent marital funds pursuing this relationship, we can ask for reimbursement." After work, I drove to Rita's small house across town. I hadn't told Haley I was going. Another boundary set. Rita answered the door in her gardening clothes, soil still clinging to her fingers. Her eyes widened when she saw me. "Max, is everything all right?" She wiped her hands on her apron. I shook my head. "Can we talk?" We sat at her kitchen table, the same one where we'd had countless family dinners. I laid out the situation without insults, without rage, just facts. Haley had left for a month with Aiden. She'd spent joint funds. She'd come back demanding the house. Rita's hands trembled around her teacup. "I worried something like this might happen," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "She's always been selfish, even as a little girl. I thought she'd grown out of it with you. I'm sorry to put you in this position. I'm meaning it." She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "No, I'm sorry. I suspected for years that she didn't appreciate what she had with you." When I got home, Maple met me at the door, tail wagging. She followed me from room to room as I moved through the house, like she was standing guard. In the kitchen, I could hear Haley on the phone, her voice low but animated. I caught fragments. "Lawyer says," and "entitled to half," and "he's being unreasonable." Later that night, as I headed upstairs to bed, Haley appeared in the hallway. Her approach was different, softer, calculated. "Max," she said, her voice honey-sweet, "can we talk? Really talk?" I stopped, keeping distance between us. "About? Us. This isn't who we are. We're soulmates, Max. We've always been. Don't throw us away over one mistake." I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman I'd built a life with, standing there trying to rewrite a month of betrayal as a simple error. "Soulmates don't rent beach houses with neighbors," I said, my voice even. No shouting, no dramatics, just truth. Her face changed, the sweetness hardening into something cold and determined. "If you won't be reasonable, I'll do what I have to. I'll make you look dangerous, Max. You have a temper. Everyone knows that." My fingers tightened around my phone in my pocket. In that moment, I decided I would record every encounter from here on out, every conversation, every threat. If Haley wanted war, she'd get evidence instead. The mediation office felt like a doctor's waiting room, neutral walls, tasteful art that said nothing, and chairs arranged to keep everyone at a professional distance. I sat beside Leah, 3 binders stacked between us on the table. Each one was labeled by month in Leah's precise handwriting. Haley arrived 15 minutes late with her attorney, a thin man with expensive glasses who introduced himself as Warren. He pulled out a single manila folder. The contrast wasn't subtle. "Let's begin," the mediator said. She was older, with silver-streaked hair and reading glasses that hung from a beaded chain. "I understand we're here to discuss division of assets in the Miller dissolution." Leah nodded. "We are, and we'd like to address the matter of dissipation first," Warren sighed. "My client denies any inappropriate spending." Then we have documentation your client should see. Leah slid the first binder forward, opening to a color-coded spreadsheet. During the period of separation, which began unofficially on February 12th, when Mrs. Miller left the marital home, there were significant expenditures from joint accounts that were not for marital purposes. The mediator adjusted her glasses. Can you be specific? Certainly. Leah turned a page. On February 14th, there was a charge at the Overlook Hotel for $380. On the 15th, a dinner at Skyline Restaurant for $217. On the 16th, purchases at Victoria's Secret totaling $246. She continued methodically, each charge landing like a small stone. I watched Haley's face. At first, she maintained a bored expression, examining her nails. But as Leah read aloud the charges, rooftop bars, boutique hotels, luxury gas stations near Aiden's place, her composure cracked. Her jaw tightened and a flush crawled up her neck. On March 3rd, Leah continued, there was a withdrawal of $2,000 cash, followed by a week at Sandpiper Beach Resort, which appears on Mr. Carlisle's credit card, but the cash withdrawal coincides exactly with the timing. This is ridiculous, Haley interrupted, her voice sharp. You're making me sound like some kind of… These are bank statements, Mrs. Miller, Leah said calmly, not interpretations. And on March 7th, Leah continued, as if there had been no interruption, the mortgage payment for the marital home was returned for insufficient funds. This overdraft occurred directly because of these expenditures. The mediator turned to Haley. Would you like to respond to these allegations? Haley crossed her arms tight against her chest. I needed some comfort. Is that a crime? Max was cold, distant. I felt alone. For 32 days? Leah asked, her voice still professional but with an edge. While draining joint accounts? This isn't about emotional support, Mrs. Miller. This is about financial responsibility. Mrs. Miller, the mediator said, these expenses do appear significant, and if they were not for marital purposes, they could impact the final division of assets. Warren leaned over to whisper something to Haley. Her face tightened further. I said nothing. I didn't have to. The silence in the room pressed down, broken only by the gentle flip of pages as Leah continued presenting evidence. After 2 hours, the mediator tapped her pen thoughtfully. Based on what I've seen, I would recommend the following framework. Mr. Miller retains the marital home, as he was the one who maintained payments. Mrs. Miller waives any claim to spousal support, given the dissipation evidence, and Mrs. Miller returns 50% of the funds spent during separation on non-marital expenses. Warren started to object, but Haley put a hand on his arm. Her eyes darted to me, then back to her attorney. Fine, she said flatly. If that's what it takes to end this. We signed the tentative agreement, just a framework for the final settlement. As we left, I caught Haley staring at me, her expression unreadable. Was it hatred? Regret? I couldn't tell anymore. That evening, I ate dinner alone in the house for the first time in weeks. Maple curled at my feet, occasionally glancing up as if checking that I was still there. The silence felt different. Not hollow anymore, but peaceful. I looked around at the kitchen I'd built, the living room where I'd hung every picture, and felt a flicker of relief. The house would stay mine. I washed my plate, fed Maple, and settled on the couch with a book I'd been meaning to read for months. For the first time since Haley left, I felt myself begin to relax. The worst was over. We had an agreement. Now it was just paperwork and moving forward. At 10 o'clock, a sharp knock rattled the front door. I wasn't expecting anyone. Maple barked once, alert beside me. I opened the door to find a county sheriff's deputy standing on my porch, face professionally neutral. Max Miller? He asked. Yes? He shoved an envelope into my hand. You've been served. The envelope was heavy in my palm, official seals stamped across the front. I opened it as the deputy returned to his car. The bold text at the top hit me like a physical blow. Temporary restraining order. I stood in the doorway, staring at the document in my hands. The sheriff's car pulled away, taillights disappearing down the street while I couldn't move. My fingers trembled as I flipped through the pages. Petitioner, Haley Miller, alleges that on April 17th, respondent Max Miller became physically aggressive during a scheduled pickup of personal items, shoving petitioner against a wall and making threatening statements. The words blurred as my heart hammered against my ribs. April 17th, the mail pickup. I remembered it clearly. Haley had texted asking to collect her mail that had been delivered to the house. I'd agreed to leave it in a box on the porch, but she'd shown up early while I was still sorting it. I'd filmed the entire exchange, not because I expected trouble, but because Leah had advised recording all interactions. Haley had been calm, even smiled when she saw the stack of fashion magazines I'd included. There had been no physical contact whatsoever. We stood 6 feet apart the entire time. My phone was still in my pocket. I pulled it out, fingers clumsy with shock, and scrolled to the video folder. There it was, April 17th, 5:43 p.m. I hadn't even watched it since recording it. There had been nothing to see. The restraining order required me to vacate the premises immediately and remain at least 500 feet from Haley and the house. A hearing was scheduled for 5 days later. 5 days. Locked out of my own home. The home I built. I looked back at Maple, who was watching me with confused eyes from the living room doorway. I had to leave him behind. With numb movements, I packed a small bag. Clothes, toiletries, laptop, chargers, essential documents. My hands moved on autopilot while my mind screamed. I knelt beside Maple, burying my face in his soft fur. "I'll be back, buddy, I promise." I filled his food and water bowls extra full. Haley would be here. She wouldn't let him starve. Outside in my car, I sat staring at the house I could no longer enter. The absurdity of it all washed over me. I'd done everything right. I'd stayed calm, I'd gathered evidence, I'd followed the rules. And here I was, evicted by lies. I called Nate. It was almost 11 at night, but he answered on the third ring. "Hey man, sorry to call so late," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "No problem. What's up?" Nate's voice was groggy with sleep. My throat closed up. The humiliation of having to explain made it hard to breathe. "I need a place to crash, just for a few days." "What happened?" The concern in his voice made it harder, not easier. "Haley got a restraining order. Says I pushed her. I didn't." There was a brief silence. "Come over," he said simply. "Doors open." That was Nate. No questions, no judgment. Just solid. 20 minutes later, I was sitting on his couch while he made up the pull-out bed. His apartment was small but neat. Bachelor clean, with minimal furniture and a big TV. "Thanks for this," I said, staring at my hands. I didn't know where else to go. "Stay as long as you need." He handed me a pillow and a blanket that smelled like fabric softener. "You want to talk about it?" "Not tonight." "Fair enough." He patted my shoulder awkwardly. "Get some sleep." But sleep wouldn't come. I lay on the pull-out couch, staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazy circles. My phone buzzed, a text from responding to my frantic message about the restraining order. "We'll fight this. I need that video in the system believes paper first, truth later. Don't contact her. Don't go near the house. We'll handle this in court." The system believes paper first, truth later. How many more lies would I have to endure before truth had its day? I felt stripped of everything. My home, my dignity, even Maple. All on the strength of words Haley scribbled on a form. Morning came after hours of half sleep. I showered in Nate's tiny bathroom and put on yesterday's clothes. When I emerged, Nate had coffee waiting. "I called in for both of us," he said, sliding a mug across the counter. "Told them you had a family emergency." I nodded gratefully. "I need to meet with my lawyer today. Take my spare key. Come and go as you need." After he left for work, I sat at his kitchen table and pulled out my phone. I scrolled through statements again, ran my fingers over the printouts I'd brought. The evidence that had seemed so solid yesterday now felt fragile against the weight of Haley's lies, but it was still truth. I clung to that. I opened the video from the mail pickup and pressed play. There was Haley standing on the porch, her hair pulled back, wearing sunglasses despite the cloudy day. "Thanks for sorting this," she said on screen, gesturing to the mail I'd arranged. "I appreciate it. No tension, no shoving, no threats." After she left, the video showed her texting from her car. My phone had dinged moments later. "Thanks for being civil. I'll grab the mixer next week if that's okay." I stared at the evidence in my hand, the truth that contradicted every word in that restraining order. How long could her lies outrun reality? I met Leah at her office before the sun was full. The sky outside her window was gray-pink, matching the knot of tension in my chest. She'd texted me at 5 a.m. "Come early. We need to prepare." "Show me this video," she said, her desk already covered with open folders. I pulled up the recording on my phone, hands steadier than I expected. Maybe I was getting used to the constant state of battle. "This is from when?" Leah asked, leaning forward. "Exactly 3 days before she filed the restraining order. She came to pick up mail that had been delivered to the house." I pressed play and handed her the phone. The video showed our front porch. Haley walked into frame wearing sunglasses, smiling as I handed her a stack of envelopes. "Thanks for sorting this," she said on screen, her voice light. "I appreciate it." The conversation lasted barely a minute. We stood at least 4 feet apart the entire time. No raised voices, no tension. Certainly no shoving. After she left, the camera followed her to her car where she visibly texted before driving away. The video ended with the notification sound of my phone receiving a message. Leah looked up. "And you have the text?" I pulled it up and showed her. "Thanks for being civil. I'll grab the mixer next week if that's okay." Timestamp matches the video. She nodded, eyes narrowing slightly. This directly contradicts her sworn statement. She claimed I pushed her and threatened her. The words still unbelievable, even as I spoke them. She knows I had a camera running. She texted me right after, friendly as could be. Leah connected my phone to her computer, downloading both the video and the text message screenshots. She printed everything, sliding the papers into a clear plastic sleeve. "False allegations have consequences," her voice cool but determined. "This isn't just about lifting the restraining order anymore. This is about establishing a pattern of deception that will impact every other aspect of your case." I watched as she organized a new binder, dividing it into color-coded sections: green for financial records, blue for the video evidence, red for documentation of false claims. "You've been meticulous," she said, glancing up at me. "Most clients come in with emotions, not evidence." "Emotions wouldn't get me back in my house," I replied. By mid-morning, we had a complete filing ready to challenge the restraining order. Leah walked me through what would happen next. An emergency hearing, likely within 48 hours. "What about Haley?" I asked. "Will there be consequences for her?" "The judge won't look kindly on false statements," Leah said carefully. "At minimum, it damages her credibility for everything else. At worst, there could be sanctions." I nodded, feeling the first hint of something like relief. Not victory. I was still sleeping on Nate's couch, still separated from my home and dog, but the sense that the tide might be turning. That evening I called Rita from Nate's kitchen. "Max," her voice was hesitant. "Are you okay? I've been so worried." "I'm staying with a friend," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Haley filed a restraining order against me. She told the court I shoved her and threatened her." The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung. "Rita, I'm here." Her voice had dropped to almost a whisper. "She lied? About you being violent?" "Yes, I have it on video. The day she claims I pushed her. We were perfectly civil. She even texted me afterward thanking me." "Oh, Max," I heard the shame in her voice. "I'm so sorry. I don't know what's happened to her." "I didn't call to make you feel bad," I said. I thought you should know the truth. Thank you for telling me. And Max, stand firm. Don't let her do this to you." After we hung up, I walked outside. The night was cool, street lamps casting pools of yellow light on the sidewalk. I walked the unfamiliar neighborhood, hands in my pockets, rehearsing what I'd say in court. The truth has to cut through. It has to. 5 days later, the temporary restraining order expired. Nate drove me back to my house, Maple's leash coiled in my hand. I hadn't seen my dog in almost a week. "You sure you don't want me to come in with you?" Nate asked as we pulled up. I shook my head. "I need to do this alone, but thanks. For everything. Call if you need anything," he said, clasping my shoulder briefly. I walked up the familiar path to my front door, key in hand. As I reached the porch, I noticed an envelope wedged into the doorframe, pulled it free, recognizing the court seal immediately. My hands tensed around Maple's leash as I tore it open. Inside was a formal notice, court date set for next Thursday. The hearing that would decide who kept the house, the savings, and, most importantly, the truth. I straightened my tie outside the courthouse, the knot feeling too tight around my throat. The morning sun cast long shadows across the steps, and despite the early hour, sweat beaded along my hairline. "Deep breath," Leah said, her voice calm but firm. She wore a charcoal suit, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. "We have the evidence. Just remember, answer only what's asked, nothing more." I nodded, running my hand down my tie one more time. "What if she cries, or makes new accusations?" "Let her. The judge will see through it," Leah replied, checking her watch. "The more emotional she gets, the calmer you stay." Contrast matters. The memory of Dad's words floated back to me. When I was 12 and furious about some playground injustice, he'd said, "The loudest person in the room is rarely the one who's right." I'd carried that with me ever since. "Ready?" Leah asked. "As I'll ever be." The courtroom felt smaller than I'd imagined. Polished wood, hushed voices, the faint smell of furniture polish. Haley sat on the opposite side with her attorney, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses who kept shuffling papers. When our eyes met briefly, she looked away first. The judge, a woman in her 60s with silver-streaked hair, called the session to order. After introductions, Leah wasted no time. "Your Honor, we'd like to address the temporary restraining order first," she said, her voice clear and steady. "We have evidence directly contradicting Mrs. Miller's claims." The judge nodded. "Proceed." Leah connected my phone to a small projector they'd set up. The video began to play on the wall screen, Haley and me standing several feet apart near our mailbox, my voice asking if she needed anything else from the house, her easy laugh saying she'd text me about the kitchen mixer, a completely normal civil exchange. This video was taken on the exact date and time Mrs. Miller claims my client shoved her and made threatening remarks, Leah said. She moved smoothly to the next exhibit, screenshots of Haley's text messages afterward, and this was sent by Mrs. Miller less than an hour after the alleged incident. The judge leaned forward, reading the message aloud. "Thanks for being civil. I'll grab the mixer next week." She adjusted her glasses and watched the video again, her expression hardening. "Mrs. Miller," the judge said, turning to Haley, "can you explain this discrepancy?" Haley shifted in her seat, her voice suddenly small. "The video doesn't show everything. Before he started recording," the judge held up her hand. "The timestamp on this video matches the time cited in your complaint. And your text message directly contradicts your sworn statement." She turned to the clerk. "The temporary restraining order is hereby dissolved, effective immediately." Relief washed through me, but Leah was already moving on. "Your Honor, we'd like to address the financial aspects of this." Opening a binder. "We have substantial evidence of dissipation of marital assets." For the next 40 minutes, Leah methodically laid out the records. Haley's withdrawals from our joint account, Venmo transfers to Aiden with heart emojis, gas receipts matching his zip code, hotel charges, and finally, the emergency cash withdrawal the night she followed him to a beach rental. When the mortgage payment bounced, Leah noted, pointing to the bank statement, Mr. Miller covered it from his personal account. Meanwhile, Mrs. Miller spent over $12,000 on non-marital expenses in a 4-week period. Haley's face flushed red. She leaned forward suddenly, her voice sharp. "That's not fair. Max was hiding money. He always kept separate accounts." The judge looked at her. "Mrs. Miller, please speak through your counsel." Haley's attorney whispered something to her, but she shook her head, eyes still fixed on me. "He's making me look like the villain." "Your Honor," Leah continued calmly, "we have time-stamped records of all Mr. Miller's accounts, showing no unusual activity during this period. Every withdrawal was for regular household expenses or to cover the bounced mortgage payment." The judge reviewed the financial statements, occasionally making notes. I sat still, hands folded, answering only when directly addressed. "Yes, I maintained records of all accounts. No, I never moved funds to hide them. Yes, I covered the mortgage when it bounced." After what felt like hours, the judge set down her pen. "Based on the evidence presented, I find clear dissipation of marital assets," she stated. "Mr. Miller is awarded the marital home outright, with a reimbursement credit of $6,000 to be paid by Mrs. Miller, representing half the funds inappropriately spent during the separation." She continued with other details, division of remaining assets, the return of personal property, but all I could feel was the weight lifting from my shoulders. The house was mine. The truth had won. As we gathered our papers after the ruling, Haley's attorney quickly let her out. Leah squeezed my arm. "Well done. Let's get your keys back." We walked into the hallway, and I was already thinking about taking Maple for a long walk when Haley stepped out from an alcove. Her eyes were red-rimmed, mascara slightly smudged. Without her attorney beside her, she looked smaller somehow. "Max," she whispered, moving closer. "Can we talk? Just for a minute?" Leah started to intervene, but I nodded slightly. She stepped back, staying within earshot. Haley's voice trembled, tears welling in her eyes. "I know I messed up, but we were good once, weren't we? We can be again." She reached for my hand. "One more chance, please." I stared at Haley's face, the face I'd woken up to for 7 years, and felt nothing. The tears in her eyes might have moved me once, back when I believed they were real. Now I saw the calculation behind them, the way her fingers trembled just enough to look vulnerable. She'd perfected that look over the years, usually when she wanted something. "We were good once, Max. We can be again." Her voice had that soft quality she used when trying to win arguments without actually apologizing. I didn't blink, didn't shift my weight, just looked straight through her as if seeing the wall behind. "I'm not your safety net, Haley," my voice steady. "I'm the man who stopped catching you." The words hung between us, clear and final. Her face changed, the mask of vulnerability slipping as her eyes hardened. "You're cruel," she whispered, but it wasn't really a whisper. It was loud enough for anyone nearby to hear, one last attempt to paint me as— "No," I replied simply. "I'm done." I walked past her, feeling her eyes burning into my back. I didn't turn around. Leah fell into step beside me, and we pushed through the courthouse doors into the afternoon sunlight. For the first time in months, I took a deep breath that didn't hurt my chest. "You okay?" Leah asked as we reached the parking lot. "Getting there," I said, and I meant it. That evening I called a locksmith. I watched him replace every lock in the house, the metal scraping against wood as he worked. When he handed me the new keys, I felt their weight in my palm. Solid, tangible proof that this space was mine again. I spent the next few hours in the garage, moving boxes and clearing space. The workshop I'd always wanted had been just a corner before, squeezed between Haley's exercise equipment and boxes of holiday decorations she insisted on keeping. Now I spread out, setting up my workbench under the window where the light was best. I hung pegboards on the wall, organized my tools, and swept the concrete floor clean. The smell of sawdust and metal reminded me of weekends with my dad in his workshop, learning to measure twice and cut once. Those lessons weren't just about carpentry. Maple wandered in, tail wagging cautiously as he investigated the new arrangement. He circled twice, then flopped down on the floor near my feet with a heavy sigh. Within minutes, his eyes closed and his breathing deepened into sleep. "You get it, don't you, boy?" I murmured, looking down at him. "It's just us now." For weeks, Maple had slept fitfully, always alert, always watching the door. Now he sprawled out, completely relaxed, as if he knew the storms had passed. The next morning, I called about selling the second car, the sporty little thing Haley had insisted we needed. By afternoon, I had a buyer, and by evening, I had a check. I drove straight to the bank and opened a new account, depositing both the car money and the settlement funds the court had awarded me. The teller smiled as she handed me the paperwork. "Congratulations on your new account, Mr. Miller." Such a simple thing, an account with only my name on it, but it felt like planting a flag. 3 days later, I drove out to the lake where my father had been fishing since before I was born. The gravel crunched under my tires as I pulled up beside his truck. He was already in his usual spot, 2 camping chairs set up, tackle box open. "Morning," he called, not looking up from his line. "Morning, Dad." I settled into the chair beside him, the familiar silence comfortable between us. The lake stretched out before us, still and gray in the early light. For almost an hour, we didn't speak beyond the necessary words of fishing. Pass the bait, watch your line, good cast. Finally, Dad reached into the cooler and pulled out 2 travel mugs. He handed one to me, the steam rising between. "Got the papers finalized yet?" Wrapping my hands around the. He nodded, taking a sip of his coffee. "Your mother told me. House is yours, free and clear?" "Yeah, and some of the money back." Another nod. My father wasn't a man of many words, but the ones he chose mattered. "You held your ground," he said after a while. "Didn't let her drag you down to her level? Didn't make a scene or lose your head?" He looked at me directly then. "Proud of you, son." The words settled into me, warm as the coffee. We turned back to the lake, watching our lines bob in the gentle waves. I wondered briefly what kind of life Haley would face now that consequences had finally landed. The apartment across town she'd have to rent, the explanations she'd give her friends, the money she owed me that would come out of every paycheck for months. 6 months after the courthouse hallway, my house finally felt like mine again. Sunday afternoons had become a tradition. Nate and a few guys from work would come over to watch the game. We'd spread out in the living room I'd rearranged, the furniture positioned the way I wanted it. The kitchen island would be covered with chips, dips, and whatever someone decided to bring. Laughter filled the rooms again, but it was different now. Honest laughter, not the strained social smiles of a marriage falling apart. "Pass the salsa," Nate called from the couch, not taking his eyes off the screen. I slid the bowl across the coffee table and leaned back in my chair. Maple sprawled under the kitchen table, his tail thumping lazily against the tile whenever someone mentioned his name or offered him a scrap. He'd gained back the weight he'd lost during those tense months, his coat shiny again. "You gonna refinish the deck before winter?" Dave asked during a commercial. "Already started. Got the Sanders last weekend." I nodded toward the back door. "Should be done by the end of the month." Projects kept my hands busy and my mind clear. Each one was another step in reclaiming this space. The space I'd built, the space I'd fought for. I saw Aiden only once after everything settled. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was pulling into the neighborhood when I spotted the U-Haul in his driveway. He was shoving boxes into the back, his movements rushed and irritated. The swagger was gone. No unbuttoned shirt, no practiced smile. Just a man whose shine had worn off, packing up to leave. Our eyes met briefly across the street. No wave, no acknowledgement. He turned back to his boxes, shoulders tense. Later that week, Mrs. Peterson from 2 doors down mentioned that Aiden's landlord hadn't renewed his lease. Too many complications, she'd heard. Noise complaints, late payments, the ripples of chaos that followed him wherever he went. I didn't need to know more. Some people create storms, then act surprised when they get wet. Word traveled in small circles. Rita called occasionally, our conversations polite but strained. She mentioned once that Haley had rented a small apartment across the freeway. Nothing fancy, just a 1-bedroom with thin walls and a shared laundry room. She's working late most nights, Rita said, her voice carrying the weight of a mother's disappointment. Trying to make extra to cover those court fees. I didn't respond to that part. There was nothing to say. The court had ordered, and Haley had to pay. The money she'd spent trying to escape her life with me was now slowly trickling back, paycheck by paycheck. Leah John called in the 6th month to confirm the reimbursement plan was on track. Her voice was as precise as ever, reviewing the numbers with clinical efficiency. Everything's proceeding as ordered, she concluded. The payments are coming in on schedule. Thank you. Knowing that thank you covered so much more than this update. It was for standing beside me, for building those binders, for believing evidence would matter. You did the hard part, she replied, seeming to understand. You stayed calm when it would have been easier not to. That evening I stood in the garage, running my hand along the shelves I'd built. Fresh cedar, clean lines, everything in its place. The workshop smelled of sawdust and possibility. I'd installed proper lighting, the kind that didn't cast shadows when you were trying to measure. In the corner stood the table I was building, my first furniture project, something just for me. I breathed in the quiet satisfaction of stability. This was what I'd fought for, not just a house, but peace within its walls. Looking at my hands, calloused from building and rebuilding, I thought about the audience I'd first spoken to when this all began. Those of you who might be standing where I once stood, watching someone walk out with your trust in their suitcase. Here's what I learned. Betrayal feels like an ending, but it's actually a test of proof, patience, and resolve. When someone shows you they can leave you behind, don't chase after them. Stand still, document everything. Let silence do the heavy lifting while evidence does the talking. I didn't ruin Haley. She ruined herself. The only choice I made was to stop cushioning her fall. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.